All right, we are back after a couple of weeks gone. Here we are. To hell with the podcast. I'm Tim here with Daryl as always, and welcome to episode 38 of To Hell with the Podcast, where we talk about one of our favorite bands of all time, Stryper. And hopefully you know who they are if you're listening to us for the first time. And if you don't, go back and listen to the first 37 episodes and you'll kind of get a feel for who they are. But one of the most, or I should say, the biggest metal band compromised of Christians ever. So I'll just leave it at that. But Daryl, good evening to you, man.
How you doing, man? I am so stoked to be back in the saddle, so to say. We've been off for a couple of weeks for various reasons, but I am stoked to be back here with you. So let's do it.
Yeah, no, it has been a couple of weeks and we apologize, but sometimes life just happens.
For sure. For sure.
Life just happens. But I think we got a pretty interesting show for you today because what we wanted to talk about today was Christian music. And I use that term lightly because I never have really liked using, to me, it's a subculture. It's a culture, in a sense. That's just my opinion. But when you use the term Christian music, it kind of already gets either people really excited or people just go, oh, whatever. But what we want to talk about is music in the Christian industry prior to Stryper and what it was like after Stryper from what we experienced. I mean, you may, as you sit here and listen today, you may be like, well, that's not right or that's not true. But we're going to talk about some facts, but we're also going to talk about it from our perspective as well. And what did we know? What was it like? What were we listening to before we even heard of Stryper when they came out in 1984? So I don't know if you had any thoughts that you wanted to add to that.
No, I mean, you and I have a lot of perspective on this subject, so it's going to be fun to talk about. Because we're church kids, so we do have a lot of perspective on CCM, as I used to call it back in the day. Yeah, and it does, when you call it Christian music, sometimes it does leave a funky taste in your mouth. I just, to me, as I've gotten older, I just consider it just another genre of music in general. So, but it used to be, you would stick it over here in a box and call it CCM, contemporary Christian music. So, but yeah, we can definitely dive into a lot of different angles of what it used to be and kind of what it is now. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing is, and I mean, I think I've even heard or read where Michael Sweet has said stuff like this before. It's like, come on, man. And I agree with this. You don't, you have a plumber that could be a Christian, but you don't have a Christian plumber. You don't have a Christian electrician. You don't have you have people that are Christians, but we label everything. And I remember one time, uh, family Christian bookstores. I remember I was talking to the manager at one of the stores once, and he was like, man, they'll put a fish on anything and sell it. Now we've got tools that we're selling at family Christian stores that have a fish on a hammer. Yeah, and then he went on to say, but look at the quality of this hammer. This hammer sucks, but people will buy it because there's a fish on it. So that's just kind of what I think that's just kind of the thought process some people have when they hear Christian music or Christian this. It's like Christian movies, Christian, and I'm sorry, sometimes the movies are bad. They're terrible. Production is awful.
Yeah. A lot of times, and with that thing from the entertainment angle, a lot of times they don't have the budgets that other stuff has. And, you know, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. Sorry, pun intended. But but yeah, no, I agree with that angle. Yeah, a lot of times it might suck, but I mean, to put it in the separate box as I don't know how much that still goes on, but it definitely was going on in the '80s. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like, I don't know if you remember this book series. I'm just going to go on a little sidebar here because it's just a story I remember with my kids.
I know what you're gonna say. Go ahead.
It was, we were, Left Behind was a big popular series of books in the 90s. And They did a Left Behind. They did like 3 movies. Kirk Cameron was in it, Mike Seaver from Growing Pains, and, you know, a couple of other people, and there was this one scene when they, because I mean, the books at the time, they were so big that you would sit there and you would think that this is gonna be a good quality movie production, and because it was so big. But then when I saw the movie, it, first of all, they destroyed it because they released it to home video before it went into theaters. I'm like, why did they do? Oh, because they probably knew it was going to be a bomb because it stunk. But there was this one scene where they showed this airplane flying through, and it was so fake looking that even my 2 kids at the time saw it and just started busting out laughing because it was so fake. And that is unfortunately how, when we say Christian music, when we say Christian industry or Christian entertainment, it's always looked at as a B grade or C grade kind of level of entertainment because the production, the acting, whatever it might be, it just doesn't meet the standards. And I think that's what made Stryper so different, was that they came out on a non-Christian label, Enigma, and didn't have all those other bars and stuff kind of holding them back from being the band that they became to be. But we'll get into all of that in just a minute.
Yeah, and to follow up your point, I think when you do put the fish on something, you're automatically excuse me, you automatically have a an audience. Okay, this is your audience, and it's only going to
Yeah,
be this big. So you're automatically cutting out a lot of your mainstream, you know, followers or your audience or whatever. So I mean, unfortunately, you put that put your audience out there, and then you make a less than quality product, and that's what you're going to end up with. So, but anyway, let's we're getting off the rails early here.
yeah,
So,
we're already getting off the rails and we're only 7 minutes in. So,
all
all right,
right,
let's get
let's
over to the news desk real quick. We got a couple of things that we wanted to cover from there. And the first thing coming out, we've already heard the new song, I'm All Right, I'm Okay. You know, incredible song. We talked about it on our last episode, what our initial reaction was. Now, the second single from that album is coming out next Tuesday, June 30th. So a week. So this gets released tomorrow. So we're looking at, so which would be Tuesday. So a week from today, on June 30th, that will be released. And there's been a lot of great reaction to the first song, and so excited to see what the second song's gonna sound like.
yeah, I'm stoked. I mean, like I said, anytime there's new music, I'm all about it. So yeah, I'm stoked to see what this next one's going to sound like. So
Yeah, but I still haven't seen anything though on a release date of the album, what the album title is, what the artwork cover is, because they just finished up a leg of tours. I don't know if that's the right term, leg of tours. They
like
finished
it
a leg,
shows.
yeah, of shows, and yeah, a leg of shows. Yeah, sorry, tours was the wrong word. Thank you. A leg of shows, and a lot of what we've been seeing coming out on social media has been pictures of the band. It has been, maybe some videos of them talking pre-show, all that other kind of stuff. So June 30th, though, maybe we'll start to see a little bit more of release date of the new album and everything like that. Because they've got a big run coming up in the fall time of shows that they'll be doing. And I'm sure it's supposed to be coming from their new album.
Yeah, you would think but by the time that leg kicks off, we should have a lot more information. At least I would think so.
Yeah. I'm curious though on these recent ones if they played the new song in their set list.
You would think so.
Have you seen?
I haven't looked up the set list.
Because let's see, this is the last one, June 20th. That's on here. Divider. I'm just going to read off the ones that are from their newer stuff. Divider, Sorry, cover of Breaking the Law, No More Hell to Pay, When We Were Kings, The Valley. And nope, they did not do, well, at least not on that show. They didn't do the,
Some bangers on the end of that.
yeah, they haven't done I'm All Right, I'm Okay yet. according to the set list. So,
Hmm.
but if you've seen them or have heard differently, let us know because I mean, again, new stuff. I want to hear the new stuff. I've heard
Yeah,
Calling on You a lot over the years live.
I bet by the time they go out on that long leg, I bet we'll see some of that stuff. Maybe it's not up to Mike's standards yet.
Exactly. And that's going to be the other thing we kind of get into is, you know, the production and stuff that's all that we talk about all the time that really has set Stryper apart from some of the other, you know, bands that have been in the Christian music industry. And we're not here. We're going to say some positive things. We may say some things that people might take as negative, but we're just giving our opinions. So that's what we're going to be doing. But you had a couple of things that you saw that you wanted to read out tonight.
I just I was on the Patreon and I saw something that I thought was interesting. And there was a guys. I apologize. My voice is kind of funky this evening, but I saw a post and it was Mike. It was just it was really it felt like it was spontaneous, and he was like, "Yeah, just off the top of my head," and it was 5 songs that Mike wishes he had written. And there's a couple of weird ones on here, but I thought it was really cool because I mean, it felt like I say, it felt really spontaneous. But the first one was More Than a Feeling, which, duh, who
Yeah.
wouldn't want to written that song? That's one of my favorite songs of all time because it just does so many things. And of course, he was in Boston, and like I say, it's one of my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah, I would give thumbs up on that one because I was gonna say that's probably my favorite Boston song. So
I mean, that's one of my Boston or anybody. I think that's a it's almost a well to me it is a fairly perfect song just composition wise, and
yeah.
there's so many things, and it's a really long song, but it's got I mean the vocals and the acoustic guitars, and then you pop into the electrics, and just I love that song.
Yeah, and just the
And then this
lyrics on the song too are great too.
yeah
I've just
well
always
yeah
just loved
yeah
the theme of the song. I mean,
yeah it's a wonderful song. The second one I thought he pops like, okay, the next one's Journey, and I was like, and he kind of paused for a second. And I was like, "Don't Stop Believing," and I was going through my Journey catalog real quick, and then he went to Wheel in the Sky, and I was like, "Okay," and I started playing it in my head, and I was like, "All right." I mean, it's a great song, but I don't. It wasn't the one I would have thought he would pick. It's a great song. So, but that's when I was like, okay, cool. I can tell he's coming like spontaneous off the top of his head. On the third one he picked was "Moving On" by Bad Company, and I was like, that's a kind of obscure, but he gave an explanation because he said he used to listen to that song at his grandma's house all the time. And I was like, all right, well, that's pulling at your heartstrings. So I'm not the biggest Bad Company fan, but I mean, hey, if you like it, you like it, and if it has a spot on your heart, then cool. All right, this is where it gets weird. "Dancing Queen" by ABBA, and I did the same thing you're doing right now. I'm like, all right. I mean,
but see, that's the thing. That's the thing that I think, based upon our musical taste, not that I'm an ABBA fan, you know, and all that kind of stuff, but I think with our normal musical taste, I think that's why we both can like Stryper so much is because the influence that Michael Sweet has had with him being the main songwriter, lyricist, everything within the band, he has all these different influences that have been in his life over the years with the music. So then you see something like, okay, just a minute ago, he's talking about this band. Now he's talking about this band, but it kind of all molds into, in a sense, of who Stryper is today.
well, if you think of, and when I was writing this down, I was thinking about, okay, why is "Dancing Queen" on this list? And if you're thinking about, and I got nerd, and I was thinking about "Dancing Queen," but if you think about the layered harmonies in that song, and if you think about the layered harmonies in Stryper, that's where I made kind of the correlation. And then if you go to the next song, freaking Bee Gees, "How Deep Is Your Love," same kind of thing. It's a soft song, but it's got those layered harmonies. And I'm like, and it's a really good song. I mean, that was a huge hit. And then for good measure, honorable mention, Jamie's crying, Van Halen. So I thought this was a really, I don't know, it was just a cute little 2-minute video, and I just thought it was cool that he just kind of came off, spontaneously with that. But I don't
So the
know.
bands, so it was Boston, Journey, Bad Company, ABBA, Bee
Bee
Gees,
Gees
and
and
then
Van
Van
Halen.
Halen. You know what's interesting? What's really interesting about that list? That on the album, The Covering, there is only one song on that list on The Covering by one of the bands they covered on The Covering,
Van
which
Halen.
was Van Halen. Now they covered also Boston on Murder by Pride, and that's when he had just come off doing the leg with the run of shows with Boston, so that made sense to do a Boston cover at that point. But that's
Peace of mind.
interesting that 4 of the 6 songs are by bands that didn't even end up on the covering.
Well, I think he was I mean, I think he was being like just I think it was really just spontaneously. He was just thinking about stuff and he just popped the camera off and it's like, "Hey, okay, here's what I got to say." But yeah, none of the neither one of the two songs that are on the covering are on this list. So, but I'd love to hear them do More Than a Feeling. That would be really awesome.
Yeah, that
I
one
don't
would be good. That one. Wait, who sung that one? Because I know I've always seen videos of Michael Sweet doing the song Amanda when he was in Boston. Was it the other gentleman when they would do More Than a Feeling? Who would cover that song when he was in Boston?
well, well, you just stumped me. I don't know the answer to that
Yeah, because I'm just
because Schultz was already gone.
no, Schultz was still there.
Oh,
Delp had passed away because, but
okay.
remember they had the two lead singers. It was Michael Sweet, and then I'm trying to remember the other gentleman's name who
Oh
recently
gosh.
passed away. Well, here's a video of Michael Sweet and Tony Harnell doing More Than a Feeling together,
I don't think that's
but that was not his time in Boston.
yeah, that's not the right I don't think that's the right one, but yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. I just thought this was really cool because it was I felt like it was really spontaneous.
Yeah, because here's
So,
something: Boston, More Than a Feeling live in 2008. I'm just looking at this here.
hmm,
Okay, let's get to this.
yeah,
Okay, yeah,
so
this is him in Boston singing it. So he
okay,
was he was singing More Than a Feeling. So,
okay, cool.
but that is an interesting list. I like that list though.
I do t yeah, I do too. I thought it was pretty cool. So, but yeah. So, do we wanna jump off the desk and get into the meat?
Yeah, let's jump off the desk and get into the meat. So let me ask you this as we get into this. You brought this idea because I told you, just with everything that had been going on with me, I said, my creativity is shot right now. Can you help me out? You brought this. What interested you about talking about this subject before Christian music, before and after Stryper came on the scene?
When I was going through this, when I was just going through ideas in my head, I have a very, vivid memory of music when I growing up as a church kid, music before Stryper, before I got into, like, music, like, heavier music and Christian rock, because it didn't exist when I was younger, and so I went to a bigger church, and music was always around because we our music department at my church was, like they were fire, dude, they were really talented folks, but there was no Christian rock. I mean, you had, like there was this one dude in the Larry Norman, and I barely remembered his name when I was going back and doing my research. He was, like, late '60s, '70s. I mean, he kept producing stuff, but there was no, like there was no Christian rock. So I have a very vivid memory of the shift. So
What about Petra? Because they were out with Greg X Volts
but
prior to, and they
yeah,
had
but
songs like Judas Kiss and
yeah, but it wasn't like Petra was kind of a line there was a little bit of a line there, but I was going through some stuff there, and but you had songs from Petra, like the coloring song, like, it's a song about the crucifixion and
Yeah.
Judas Kiss. I mean, that song was kinda heavy, but you also had, you know, El Shaddai and stuff like that from Amy Grant, and you had those softer songs from there was no, like, real, like, rock songs. Yeah, you had some songs with bass and drums, but there weren't that many,
And
and
if and lyrically, because I know we've talked about this before. We've talked about we love it when or I know you definitely do love it, and I do too, but when Stryper does a song based on a
biblical
story from the
stories.
Bible. And with that in mind, a lot of these songs were written, not Stryper songs, but in the Christian music industry, they were written for people in the church. I mean, that's who the target market was. And then it would be like, hey, you got to come see this band with me tonight. And then, and sometimes the concerts were at a church.
Well, think about there's a couple of points there. Think about first of all, yes, think about the big churches had their own bands that released, they released CDs, and you had to go, like you were bringing up earlier, the bookstores. You had to go to the bookstores to get the CDs, or you could buy them at the church. And so the distribution model was like, you can't go to a record store and buy this thing. You either have to buy them at the bookstore or buy them at the church. And we didn't have like the crossover CCM artists really yet. I mean, yeah, you had the Amy Grants and the Michael W. Smiths and the Sandy Patties and that kind of stuff, but
But a
they
lot
weren't
of that
even
crossover didn't happen till after Stryper.
right, right, exactly. So they weren't on MTV yet. So that didn't happen until after Stryper. So you didn't have basically everything was contained to the church. So yeah, it was kind of weird.
Because I think the thing is like when we say rock, people would because I mean I thought to myself, well, there was Petra, there was other bands that would be considered Christian rock, but they weren't the rock standard that you and I listened to when it came to rock. There wasn't and I hate to say this, there wasn't anyone sounding like Van Halen. There wasn't anybody sounding in a sense, I mean, I know Journey had Faithfully and Open Arms, but then you had some of their other Stone Cold in Love. Then, you had those other rock bands of the time that there wasn't that same rock in the Christian music industry at that time.
At that time, you didn't have anything. I mean,
No,
I was looking around. I mean, I remember I was like I say, I was doing some research, and I remember there was a band called Messiah Prophet, and there was a band called Saint, and I went back and did a little listening, and it was just like, okay, it sounded like all every cheesy, like really bad hair metal band that you liked in like 1981, and so it was bad. And they weren't getting any love from anybody anywhere, so it was just like, yeah, it basically didn't exist. So there were a handful, but they weren't doing anything. And so the other and if we can jump like ahead a little bit, I mean, so you had the church bands and you had, the CCM bands, but then when the thing that happened when Stryper come out, if we could jump to that part, they had the look of the Sunset Bands. They had the talent of the Sunset Bands, and they were competing with the Sunset Bands. And like you said before, they were on a label that wasn't a CCM label. So they were able to have some of the distribution that their contemporaries, not CCM contemporaries, but the the Hollywood contemporaries had. So, but the whole thing was that their lyrical content was like making everybody, turn their head sideways. So, but 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 they were better than a lot of the bands that were, on the Sunset Strip. And so that was the thing I think that put them kind of in a spot where this is different and this is new, but it's not new. They sounded like they sounded like a Sunset band, but they were singing about Jesus. So that was a different look. It was a different look. It was a different flavor. But like you said before, they were on a label that could get them distribution alongside the Motleys and the Rats and everybody else.
I mean, because I mean, when I sit there and I think about and I go back to the early 80s, I mean, I didn't even know Christian music existed until probably I was in sixth grade. So that would have been, I'm trying to remember how, what year that was. That was probably 83 or 84, being in the sixth grade for me. And so when I sit there and so I remember the first time I ever heard a Christian band, it was the band Whiteheart, and it was I'm trying Vital Signs was the name of the album, and which always cracked me up because when Survivor came out with their biggest album,
Right.
it was called Vital Signs. So I thought that was kind of funny because I like Survivor a lot as well. But they were a different. It was just a different flavor, especially now with most Christian labels, because back then for if you weren't around during that time, they were Christian labels. It was it was Sparrow, it was Star Song, it was all of these things before they got gobbled up by the Sonys and and stuff like that. So they were they really saw, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but as a band, a lot of times from what I would read and see and hear, they would consider themselves a ministry of musicians. And that mindset was a little bit different than what you were saying with Stryper. When they hit the scene, they have said it before. We didn't come out of the church. We were, we weren't doing that. We were on the Sunset Strip. We were playing with these bands when we were Rock's Regime. We had these bands opening for us, and that's who, as you said just a minute ago, that they were competing with. So when they hit the scene, and you think about where the industry was at that time, and I mean, think back to it too. I mean, you would have people come to your church, or you would go to a concert, unless it was an Amy Grant or Michael W. Smith. Sometimes you would see these people in shirts and ties performing. And it was very clean looking. I guess that's the best way to say it. It was very
Just
clean looking.
yeah. No, it was very well, and it was very kind of it was it was more corporate too. I mean, like you say, if you're sitting in church at well, Michael W. Smith's different. I mean, he's probably playing at a theater somewhere, but yeah, it was very clean looking, and I think one of the things that pushed Stryper apart from that kind of environment is they were kind of doing ministry because they never you didn't ever not know who they were, and we've said that a million times.
Right.
So they were on a strip, but even back then, Stryper rocks for Jesus Christ. You know, so I think that was where the divide started because the church was still like, we don't think you guys can do that, and so it did pull them further away from the CCM box, which they were never really in the first place. But I and I don't know if this is a valid statement. I'd have to really go back and pull some numbers, but I also think maybe they help pull some of those CCM people out of the box and into more mainstream. I could be wrong,
Well,
but
it's interesting that you say that because, I mean, Amy Grant, she was very much in the CCM world. Stryper came out with Yellow and Black Attack in 84. Well, when she came out with her album Unguarded, Find a Way was a song that she released in 1985 that actually was on the pop charts.
Hmm.
It wasn't as big as her 1990-91 album that had Baby Baby and a lot of other songs on it when she went full mainstream in a sense. But this particular album, it was released, yeah, and it looks like in 85, and this single was released in 85 calendar year, a year later. I don't know how many months it was when between Stryper releasing Yellow and Black Attack and Amy Grant doing this song. But I remember this was the first song that was by a Christian artist that I heard on the regular radio station.
I mean, not for nothing, but I mean, I think some of that stuff softened up the record labels. It's like, we could sell some of this." And, those guys are all just looking for the check, so, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that had something to do with it. Like I said, I have to go back and check my data, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would probably yeah, I would say yes to that statement now. But I think back then it was, yes, we need to make money at doing this. But I just always felt that they were like more concerned about ministry first than money. And,
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure.
and then, because I mean, I read stories by other bands where they would, I mean, especially after Stryper came out, they were a rock band and they would sell 20,000 units and music was their side job where they had a full-time job doing something else
Yeah, that's fair.
because they weren't hitting the market the way. But then that poses a question though. Okay. So like to hell with the devil sold a couple of million albums. We know not every single person who bought to hell with the devil was
Christian.
was a Christian. And not every person who bought it was a non-Christian. So let's just split it down the half, 50-50. A million Christians, a million. Why were there other Christian acts only selling 20,000 albums when you had Stryper selling a million? Even though they were on MTV and they were all, there were a lot of church kids back then as well. Did it have to do with the quality of what was being put out?
That's the answer. You had a once Stryper got big, like everything else, that was
That
a
was the bar.
yeah, well, that was not only the bar, but that was a fad. So you had, "Oh, Stryper singing about Jesus, so we should sing about Jesus." It's like when glam hit, it's like, we need to look like them." When Stryper hit, it's like, "Oh, we need to sound like them." There were a ton of crappy Christian bands, you know, but, like we always say,
Well, let me interrupt you there.
yeah, go ahead.
I would add one thing to that. A ton of bands that weren't good, but were very popular.
Example.
Okay. Well, I don't want to be critical of any band out there because they
Just
were
give me one.
their heart was in it.
Okay,
You
well,
know,
just give me one. Give me one that you liked that was crappy, because I got one.
yeah, I wouldn't say maybe crappy's too strong of a word or that they weren't good,
Okay,
but
just not as good.
yeah, not as good because the way that I look at music really being good is can I still listen to it today?
Okay, that's fair.
Can I still listen to it today? And honestly, that's why I have, and people may get on to me for this one. I was a big fan of Petra back during the day, but I felt like with they overuse, especially when they really after Stryper came out and they were really using and they really moved towards the rock and guitar and they really shifted towards fitting more with John Schlitt's voice than versus Greg X Volz's voice. I felt like now when I go back and I listen to a song, I feel like the keyboard was overused. So I'm like, oh, man, that's why some of the songs that they did, I can't listen to today because it does sound very dated. Like I can't pick this up and drop it now, if that makes sense. But I really liked them. I wouldn't say they were bad, but then there were other bands that were definitely I liked, but they weren't great.
Hmm, that's the one that I would disagree with you on. I still like Petra. I mean, to me, they're kind of, almost a progressive band. I've I like I almost can say I like all of their stuff. They have a little bit of peak and valley, but they when I as they were talking about before, when I move out of the CCM days into the Petra days, I've never stopped liking Petra. Uh, and then there's some nostalgia there, obviously, but yeah, there's just
'Cause I
I
mean,
don't know when you get
I
into
don't
that.
mind. Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't mind the keyboard. I just don't like it taking over the song. I've just never really liked it being the center, or this is what I'm mainly listening to on the song. And that's why, like the beginning with honestly, like, yeah, I like honestly, but when I think back to the songs I still listen to from the 80s that were ballads, most of them don't have a keyboard in them for the most
Yeah,
part. And
yeah,
so
that's fair.
I think that's just my personal taste. I've just never really liked the keyboard sound in a rock band.
Yeah, that's fair. I I also have to be in the mood to listen to that too. Uh, but I don't know, and I also like the Petra songwriting has always been like really good for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to take away from the songwriting and everything like that. I'm not saying every single song by them I feel that way about, but it's just when the keyboard is very overweighted in the song. It's just like, I'm like, it just kind of doesn't do it for me the way that it did. But I mean, there's some other bands that I really liked back in the day that I really don't listen to much. I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time I listened to them. Like there was a band called Idle Cure that I listened to. They were a rock band that was out late 80s, early 90s, and they were okay. But they never really made it big in the Christian market, but they're not a band that I listen to anymore today. But
I saw Tourniquet's coming back out on tour.
but then but then one band that I still like because I just loved his voice, and I think they progressed with every song that they did, and it was just more my style, and I thought they had a great guitarist, was Guardian.
Guardians kind of a mainstay. Yeah, White Cross was always one of those kind of, but whatever.
Yeah, it just goes back to what we've talked about before. If you like Rat, listen to White Cross.
Well, I really like rap, but I don't really like White Cross.
That's because I felt this is just me, and I'm not saying that this is what happened, but I could just see what was happening. I could just see it. Now that I'm older, hey, this band is really big in the
Let's make the same
in this
flavor like
in the mainstream music scenario, rock band. We need a band that sounds like them.
right,
White Cross.
right.
This band sounds give 'em this. But you could never do that with Stryper.
Yeah, no, that's true. There was some band, and I can't remember the name of them, but and I think they were from Japan, and they
Hurricane?
no, not no, they were a Christian band. They were a Christian band, but they tried to recreate Eruption on the first track of their first record. I can't remember the name of it, and
That had
the
to go
tra
bad.
the track was called Nagasaki. And it absolutely was a ripoff of Eruption, and they were a Christian band, and gosh, I can't remember the name of them, and if anybody's in the chat, I don't remember it, but yeah, I just can't, but I was like, "Are you guys kidding me right now?" But yeah, it made me laugh, but yeah, it was like, yeah, if you like blah blah blah, then you need to go listen to blah blah blah. And it was for like 5 years, it was just the most ridiculous thing. Cause yeah, it was like when hair metal was popular, they were just okay, if you like this ice cream, then you probably like this ice cream. And it's like, no, this isn't how this works. Yeah, because there were so many crappy hair metal Christian bands, and I don't know. Because they used to do that thing at Six Flags where they, I think was it like
Atlanta Fest.
Atlanta Fest. Yeah. So yeah, it was just ridiculous. So I don't know.
And then, I sit there, man, and
And
I
the industry was just so jacked up then, so
and I just look back and I just go, I can't believe I was listening to some of that.
no, well, I
But
mean, that's what we were supposed to do.
yeah, I know that's what we were supposed to do. But then, oh my gosh, And I don't know if it's just the advent of social media or more the internet. And then, you know, now you start to read about these Christian artists. Well, I'm an atheist now. I've deconstructed my faith. I'm ex-evangelical. I'm
What
this.
does
I'm
that
that.
mean?
I've never really understood the ex-evangelical because it's like, so are you still saying you believe in Christ and God, or you just saying you're walking? I never really understood that one.
I
Kevin
don't
Max
even
calls
know.
it. Kevin Max calls himself an ex-evangelical right now.
I don't even know if I've heard that term before.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll have to look that one up.
yeah. I'll tell you real quick.
Yeah, give me a little
What
deep.
is an ex-evangelical? An ex-evangelical is someone who was formerly an evangelical Christian, but has left that specific religious tradition.
And now what?
They have theological shifts, their social and political stances, their authoritarianism. What do they believe now? They do not hold the same beliefs. The term serves as an umbrella for a wide spectrum of spiritual paths:
Oh my
progressive
gosh.
Christianity, other traditions,
What the heck is progress?
secularism.
Gosh, means you don't know what the heck you got going on.
Yeah. I mean, say what you will. This is the thing. And this is the thing I challenge, and I'm not trying to be judgmental on anybody, okay? So I'm not taking it that way.
Well, that term is BS, dude. I'm sorry.
Say what you will about Stryper and their against the law era. At the end of the day, not one of them has ever had a situation where they were part of somebody getting drugged and then watching them being sexually assaulted. And that comes from, and I'm not, I mean, if you know the story, you know exactly who I'm talking about. And the advances on men and all of that came out a year or two ago. No, it came out last year.
Last year.
And again, I'm not being judgmental, but it's just like, to me, that's just for all the flack that Stryper has gotten over the years. They look this way, they this, that they've always, you know, have been strong in their faith, except against the law period, where they read the book. Honestly, you'll understand where Michael Sweet was coming from. But it's just like, I think that's the thing that I would say. Yes, there were things that happened when when it was a true Christian label. But if it was a Christian label, it was cut out really quick. I mean, I can remember there was a singer in Whiteheart who got busted for something, not the one that we all know, but like one of their very first original singers. There was another gentleman who had an affair, had a couple of Dove Awards, got those stripped away. But then when they got moved into the secular, when they got moved into the mainstream, like Sony bought up all of these things. As long as we're making money, we're good. As long as we're making money, we just sweep that under the rug. Keep that. That's just a rumor. As long as we're making money, that's good. I mean,
Well, that's the industry, dude. I mean, gosh, I mean, yeah, we know how all this crap works. As long as we're making money, we're good. I mean,
I know.
yeah, especially when you're dealing with these multi-bajillion-dollar corporations. Yeah, I mean, because yeah, Sony, BMG. I mean, all these. I don't even know if BMG's a thing anymore, but yeah, they came and scooped up all these Christian labels, and then it was like, okay, cool, we're just mainstream now, and yeah, I mean that that piece of the industry doesn't really exist anymore. So, I mean, that yeah, it's kind of been a little bit of a history lesson. So yeah, it's the the CCM. Well, gosh, does the Devil Wars still exist?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so but it's way different than it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is way different. And I mean, I think the thing is, it's like when Stryper hit in '84, they I mean, they were cutting the path. It hadn't been done before. I mean, they were in the jungle with a machete chopping the road, making the road for a band exactly like that they are. And you had the people that tried to follow them and be like them. But that was the problem. That to me, that was the problem within the Christian industry after Stryper came out. Because Stryper, Michael Sweet will say we were influenced by Van Halen, Judas Priest, this. These other bands after Stryper came out and they said, okay, they're making money. Maybe we could do this. You didn't really, in my opinion, you didn't really see who their influences were. It was, you need to sound like them. Instead of being true to yourself, it was go sound like them. And that's where you ended up with, if you like, here's this. If you like, here's this. And you didn't have bands being true to themselves. Like when Van Halen I mean, I was still too young, but when Van Halen first hit with their first album, and people were like, oh my gosh, who is this guy playing the guitar? What is this? I mean, because it was something new. And that's always been a challenge that I've had with the Christian industry. It's they don't try to be innovative and do new and bold things. They try to imitate
No, you're totally
what's
true.
what's already popular.
Well, that's the thing too is you say on the innovation front. I mean, it's funky because you know Stryper always they were always influenced by secular music. I mean, as far as from the music side of things, but the songwriting always came from the Christian side of the tracks, and so they were really able to fuse all that together, and everybody coming behind them were more worried about pleasing the CCM side of things and weren't original enough or maybe not talented enough to fuse their own sound together, which as far as the Christian rock stuff after Stryper, I don't know if any I I can't think of anybody that was even close because they weren't trying to like pull sources that inspired them to make their own sound. I mean, who the heck after Stryper was trying to like emulate s- inspiration from Judas Priest or Van Halen or Iron Maiden or any of that kind of stuff? I mean, nobody was trying to do that. They were just trying to imitate, you know, what Rat was doing. Like you said, he just imitate the flavor that of the month. You know,
Because I mean, you bring up a good point because there's two bands that I really think that really try to do things who influenced them. One we've already talked about, and Oz Fox produced their first album, which was Guardian. But on that album, they had a different lead singer. It wasn't Jamie Rowe. But I felt like they continued to do to me, they kind of stood out from the other rock metal bands in the Christian industry. Guardian did. And then I know people laugh at me for as much as I like them, but I still listen to them. It was the band Shout. They did a couple of albums. He went solo after Shout, and that was Ken Tamplin. But the thing with him though is you listen to him and he was influenced by the same guy Stryper was influenced by,
that's true.
you know? So it was very, very different than what other or what was going on in the industry at that time.
Yeah, Tamplin's I always forget about that guy. I always forget he was in a band because I just see him on YouTube all the time.
I know, and the thing is, I know some people go, "Oh, he's lip syncing and he's this," and I'll tell you this: when they did a festival last year called Immortal Fest, and somebody got out there and did a video and said he lip synced the whole thing or something like that. But the interesting thing was because I knew those songs so well back in the day, I could tell the differences when I watched the shout portion of the show versus what was, and I'm like, he didn't lip sync that, you know?
I don't think the guy ever. I mean, maybe on a off night. I don't even know. I'm not as familiar with his stuff as you are, but I mean, whenever I hear him do like a vocal exercise or a vocal demonstration, I've never seen that guy lip sync ever, and his stuff is cold, man. He's such a good vocalist.
I mean, I mean, he is an excellent vocalist, and like him or hate him, I mean, I give him the props. I mean, I
No,
mean,
he's excellent.
he ranks. I remember one time I posted on Facebook about some of my favorite vocalists, and he was one of my favorite. I mean, it was a group of secular, and I'm just using these terms because this is just what it's known in the world. Secular artists versus the Christian artist. There were more secular artists on there than there were Christian artists, but Ken Tamplin was on there because I just still think he's got a phenomenal voice.
Well, he kinda splits it down the middle too. If I mean, when I watch his demos, I mean, he does his stuff's kinda all over the place because he does do, like, a lot of secular songs when he's doing the demonstrations because 'cause he'll show you the techniques and stuff, and most of the time when I watch him, he's doing more, like, rock stuff, but, I mean, his you can't deny the talent that dude has in his voice. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean it's really and I mean, but he has been, but I see him, and the crazy thing is he's cousins with Sammy Hagar,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and
When was Shout? What year?
87, 88,
Yeah, okay,
89, and then
I thought it was
there ended up being an issue with the name Shout, so they had to kind of disband, and that's when he did another group thing, but then he did a few solo albums, and then he just kind of on my radar, he just kind of disappeared for a while, and then he does his vocal academy now, which is what he really focuses on, and I mean he's got a lot of followers on his YouTube channel too. So I mean he's
Yeah, he does. I know he
pretty
was teaching
popular
for a
out there.
while. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he's
know he
still
was
teaching. He's got those he'll share videos by different people that, have trained under him. So I mean it's pretty amazing.
yeah, he's a very, very talented dude. So,
Yeah.
okay.
But I mean, again, it's they and I felt like with them, they weren't trying to be someone else. They were trying and I mean, he's kind of like one of those rare talents who can sing and play guitar.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, he's a super talented dude. I could watch him sing, like I usually fall down a rabbit hole on the weekend sometimes, and I'll just watch him sing stuff.
Yeah.
So, I'm a
But what's
fan.
but what's funny is it's and I'm not saying this bad. I mean, this is just stuff that's on the internet. The bands, I mean, we talked about Stryper, who was never signed to a Christian record label. And if you want to, I mean, he doesn't really get into the details, but Ken Tamplin will sit there and say when he was on the Christian labels that it was not the best experience in the world. And then Guardian, you listen to Jamie Rowe and he doesn't go into depth, but he just talks about, yeah, there were some challenging times with the labels and everything like that. But those are the two bands I ended up liking, the ones who have said, yeah, there were challenges with the Christian labels. And and I don't know what that was or what caused that, but it was,
I bet it's budgetary, if I had to guess. I mean, I can't imagine, if you have a label of only Christian artists and they they never sold a ton of records. So I mean, it's got to be budgetary production costs, that kind of stuff. So I mean, if you don't have the money to make the stuff that you want to make, that's a challenge. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just giving opinions. So yeah, but it's probably I mean just the state of the industry at that time and the Christian space. That I mean, it's got to be part of it. I mean, like I say, I could be totally wrong, but yeah, I don't know. It's a weird time in that space at that time. So
but even, one of the things too, if you think back to the 70s and the early 80s of Christian music, it was very acoustical, very Southern, very maybe even hippie like in a sense. Like you said earlier, you didn't have the rock bands that you had after Stryper because it was such a no, you can't have long hair, you can't have that. I mean, unless you were part of the Jesus movement with I don't know what else to say, but with the hippies, you know, when because I mean I watched that movie Jesus Revolution that had Kelsey Grammer and it had the guy who plays Jesus from The Chosen, and that was a pretty interesting music movie to watch, just about that time and everything. And but I mean, yeah, I mean, I mean, they definitely put. a staple in what Christian music sounded like beforehand versus to what it sounded like afterwards.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, just the distribution model was totally different. I mean, you had to buy it at the bookstore or at the church. So, I mean, they weren't selling a ton of units, and so Stryper not being on a Christian label and actually being on a not a major, but a mid major, so they could actually get stuff into the record stores. So that was a big deal, and that did kind of move the ball down the field for that, not only for them but for that style of music. So you know that that did help all those other bands that they were pulling down the road with them. So yeah, now they, I mean, they definitely moved the chains. So, but not like we didn't know that.
And I think they just went after it. I think what set them apart was they weren't bound by the Christian music industry. Because I think you put yourself you put yourself in a box. And this in my opinion, this is what ultimately led to against the law. You put in the Christian music world, you got put in a box. You know, there were the do's and the don'ts. Oh my gosh, did you see that Christian artist? They snapped a picture of him drinking a beer. Can't drink a beer. We're in the South. We're part of this denomination, and beer's of the devil. But after church, I'm going to go step outside and smoke a pack of cigarettes. I mean, but beer's of the devil. You can't do that.
Well,
And
so it's long hair and earrings. I
yeah,
mean,
long hair and earrings. You can't have long hair and you can't have earrings. And so it puts you in a box. And you look at the styles of artists prior to Stryper as well, they were very clean cut most of the time, very looked almost like a banker sometimes, you know, except the ones that were part like the Larry Normans and those that were involved in that time frame. And then it was just very cookie cutter. Like you can do this, you can't do this, you can't play that. Because I think if Stryper got signed onto music label, that if Stryper had gotten signed to a Christian music label, what would have ended up happening was they probably would have been put in a box. And I
they'd
think
got
they had the freedom to do what they wanted to do by being on a secular label.
well, they'd have got dropped because Mike would have kind of told them to go f themselves. I think.
Yeah, you're probably right. Probably would have eventually gotten dropped. And what's funny is when he was shopping a solo stuff at one point, I'd have to go back and remember, but they actually told him they were looking for younger talent or something to those terms.
Lovely.
And you think about it, he was only early 30s at the time.
Executives are stupid. I
Yeah,
swear.
I
It's
know.
like if he's in his 30s, okay, I've only sold how many records at this point, and you need younger talent. Okay, gotcha.
No, I
I
know.
mean, good lord, yeah, exactly. Yeah, most managers are dumb.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you.
Didn't we have this conversation the other day, or was it me and Ed? I can't remember.
Probably you and Ed.
Yeah, it was me and Ed. Yeah, but anyway, but yeah,
What else did you
golly.
have from your notes you wanted to cover?
So so I was gonna get back to the Larry Norman thing for a second. So I went into like a little
Gonorrhea
Larry
song?
the the what?
Gonorrhea song?
Well, there's that. That that was I, I hadn't heard that one before, but I was I kind of I listened to him for I knew the name from like back in the day, but I listened to him for like probably hour and 15 today, and I was like, man, this stuff is. It gave me like some Allman Brothers, some Skinnerd, but the lyrics were. I mean, the music was great. I mean, we had the bass and drums and just some really bluesy stuff, but it did give me like a solid like Skinner's Alter Bridge. Nope, Allman Brothers kind of vibe. But I hadn't listened to this guy since I was like since I started playing drums. But I mean, he was really he is they do call him like the pioneer of Christian rock, and there, but he does not pull any punches as far as lyrically. He will he will let you know how he's feeling, but he does have like a really good heart for like southern rock blues kind of stuff. But it was cool to get reacquainted because I remember listening to him when I was like 15, and it was just like, oh yeah, I remember this dude, and it does kind of get you to where you can see, all right, this is probably the first dude, and man, it was really fun to re-experience some of this stuff because I hadn't really listened to any of this, and then I went back and listened to like Messiah Prophet, and I was like, this is a slog. It's just not, and then Saint, because those are the only two that I really knew, and I was just like, man, nah, I can't, and it was nah, I couldn't, but yeah, it was none of the really the notes, but one of the things that I was thinking about, it's like there's timing. The timing for all this stuff was like when I was going through my notes, I was just thinking about it. I was like, the timing for all this was really kind of perfect because we got 1980. What are we talking about? 1984 when all this stuff started happening for Stryper, and right when the strip started happening, and the it was such a shock because you know you had a handful of these bands, but then you know you had the strip starting to pop, and then you had the MTV thing, and the rest is history. So the part of this that not overlooked, but the timing of all this, it can't. I don't think the timing of all this can be overlooked because the label signing, not on a Christian label, the MTV thing is about to pop. The strip is already starting to pop. There's so many dominoes that are falling, and then you know they're going after it, and they have all of the tools that you need to make everything kind of fall into place for them. So and they're getting after it. So it's they're not stopping, but then you have all these other ancillary things that are falling into place that make everything happen. Aside from their effort, because they want it obviously, and they never really good grief, they never really compromised. So I don't know. All that stuff was kind of rolling around in my head. So I think if all that stuff didn't fall into place when it did, I don't know if we'd have what we have, for the last 45 years.
No, I agree. I mean, the way they fell into it, I mean, they were a band, or they are a band heavily influenced by stuff from the 70s, going back to what you originally talked about. Some of the songs that he wished he had written. I mean, it's not your typical rock stuff, but I mean, heavily influenced. You go look at the album, The Covering, and, they're playing along with the lines. They're not saying, they've written some songs, and,
Enigma.
thank you, has signed them, and they're not Christian lyrics yet. And they go back and rewrite the lyrics, and they end up with MTV at the right time. And MTV's like telling them no, but the fans came out and said, no, you're going to play them on the dial MTV. I mean, they just everything, because they did it differently, is what, in my opinion, is what made them stand out. They didn't go the normal, because they were already signed. They didn't go to a Sparrow or a whatever record label. They were already in that, and it just helped them, in my sense, all those things working together helped propel them in the 80s to what they became.
Well, they didn't compromise. I mean, they could have signed to Sparrow or any of those silly labels, but they they wanted to be out there, and they wanted to get their message out there too, and they had the talent to compete, like I said before, compete with all those other contemporaries that were, in Hollywood and all that kind of stuff, but they could have totally caved, and they didn't.
Yeah, they could have totally caved, but I think that that's where the difference in them was. they always said their market wasn't the church,
Right. And the church
where
didn't want it.
and the Christian labels was your market's the church.
Yeah, that was
And you might get a kid saying, "Hey, come to this concert with me or come to my church tonight and hear this band." But, you know, as a non-Christian, let me rephrase that. I'm not, I mean, that came out like I'm a non-Christian when I said that. But if you were a non-Christian back then, did you want to go to the Fox Theater? Did you want to go to the Masquerade? Did you want to go to wherever you wanted to go to, club wise, arena wise, theater wise, or did you want to go to the church? It's going to be
well,
cooler to go see a band in places that I'm familiar with and not walk into a church at that
well,
time.
well, the church really didn't want him anyway. So, yeah, no, they made the right decisions and they never really compromised. So, I mean, good on them. I mean, you know, like I say, Mike probably would have told him to, you know, pound sand anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, it was like, this is who we are. And we're going to, like I said earlier, they were in the jungle with a machete cutting the road.
yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that's why we like these guys so much. They've never been anything but what they are. So,
Yeah. And they were true to themselves. And I mean, I pulled this up. It says here the 1980s industry boom. Christian bookstores and record labels realized they could capture a massive audience if they successfully matched specific musical taste. Employees were trained to act as musical curators using phrases like, if you like this mainstream rock pop artist, you will like this Christian alternative to satisfy both a parent's desire for safe lyrics and a youth's desire for modern sound.
that's disgusting.
See, we're not making that up, folks. That really happened.
I gotta find this Nagasaki song. I gotta figure out who this band is. My gosh, maybe I won't do this tonight.
Now you got me wondering what the heck that song is, because I never even heard.
But one of my bandmates brought it to me. He's like, "Dude, you gotta listen to this." I mean, it was I mean, it wasn't Eruption, obviously, but it wasn't it wasn't horrible, but I was already neck deep in Van Halen, so
Yeah. Well, that was the thing too. I mean, I wasn't neck when Stryper came out. I wasn't neck deep in the rock world, but I was neck deep in the mainstream world. I
yeah,
mean, I was totally. I mean, I'll never forget when I was a kid. Remember when you used to go to Turtles? And Turtles is a record store that was here in Atlanta. It was a chain of stores here in the Atlanta area, and you would go in, and they would have like the top 40 listed, like on a piece of paper, like weekly. They would do that, and I remember, gosh, I had to be 8 or 9. I can't remember what it was.
that's
And
White Cross.
I'm talking with the music minister at church, and I'm telling her what I wanted for Christmas, and they were all these 45s of songs off the top 40.
So Nagasaki, famous instrumental track by the Christian band White Cross.
What?
That's what I'm seeing. That's what AI is telling me.
Yep,
Dang,
that is White
I'd,
Cross.
I'd forgotten that it was not. Dang. Huh. Totally forgotten about that. Rex Carroll.
Rex Carroll.
Wow. 87. So I was 16. Okay. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's when they first came out with their first album.
Yeah. It was on the first record. I remember one of my bandmates bringing it to me. He's like, yeah, because it had those arpeggio sweeps and he was kind of killing it on there. I mean, like I say, it wasn't Eruption, but yeah,
Because, I mean, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that it goes back to what I was saying earlier that always kind of bothered me. When did Rat come out? 83, 84.
depends. Let's see. Well, the EP well, dang, dude.
When did
Let's
they
see.
hit big with Round and Round? Was it 84?
83, 84. Yeah.
Okay. So if you go back to what I was saying just a minute ago, if you like Rat, you'll like White Cross. White Cross came out with their first album 3 years after Round and Round.
I love
That
Rat.
is the problem that I think that I had with that whole thing was that we they weren't leading, they were following.
Yeah, totally. I agree. No, the whole thing, if you like this, you like that. That whole thing just I freaking hated it. Cause I mean, cause I was already starting to play drums then, and I was like, you you could tell the Christian rock bands were okay. Cause like, I was listening all the Hollywood stuff, obviously, but then started picking up, like, some jazz stuff and, all these other things because I was just trying to soak up everything, but, you know, there was I won't say obvious, but there was a drop off in talent a lot of times. And I was like, "What? I appreciate what you're trying to do, but the quality a lot of times was better on the whatever, secular air quotes side." And so I was like, "I'm just gonna be over here. I can still, read my Bible and go to church and stuff, but musically and, a lot of times and lyrically, it never hit me because I was just listening to the music. I didn't really care about the lyrics when I was, 15, 16 years old. I didn't really give a crap what you were saying. I just wanted to hear the drummer and the bass player and the guitar player. So so I wasn't really concerned about my soul when I'm listening to, You're in Love or whatever. So it's like, let me just hear Stephen Pierce or not Stephen, what's the freaking Bobby Blotzer play his drums and, you know, Warren D. Martini play that guitar solo. That's all I wanted. So yeah, I don't know. Even as a as a kid, I didn't like that because I knew I was like, I know what you're trying to do. I don't like it.
Be authentic. That's the thing. I didn't feel
Yeah,
like these
yeah,
bands were authentic.
quit copying. Do your own thing. Yeah, so yeah, I didn't like that at all. So, but yeah, man, I think I've exhausted my resources for the evening. If,
Okay.
if you got anything else,
I don't have anything else. I think
we've taken a
I am
nice
good on my
trip down.
end.
We've taken a nice trip down memory lane.
We agreed on some things, didn't agree on a couple of things, but that's okay. That's what
Well,
makes it interesting.
what else is new?
But yeah, there you have it. That's again, we were talking today about the kind of some of the differences before and after Stryper and the Christian music scene. Some of the things that were okay, that we like. Some of the things that we didn't like. That we again, the biggest thing is if you like, you'll like this band, and it's just like never really got into that vibe. But no, that's it for episode 38 of To Hell with Podcast. So again, we will see you guys next week. And Daryl, any parting thoughts before we go?
No, I didn't know we were gonna get into the if then this that thing, but that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't get into, I mean, to me, you can't get into that when you're talking about Christian rock. You can't because that was such a big thing back then.
No, that was cool. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't prepared for that, but yeah, it was an easy thing to fall into. So that was cool. So no, man, yeah, I think we did it.
We did it, and we will see you next week again. Thanks for listening. If you've liked what you heard, like us, subscribe. We we're on YouTube and Spotify and Apple. Give us some comments, what you like, what you didn't, and we always try to respond pretty quickly. But until then, we will see you next week right here on To Hell with the Podcast. I'm Tim. I'm out, and Daryl.
Love you guys. Take care.
All right, see you guys soon.